Hello everyone, Don here with the next update on my Corsair repairs and upgrades. Put the trash can lid on. This week, last video you saw me doing all the patchwork on the cowling. So I've got this one pretty much all sanded out. It's ready for the final thick slurry of microballoons, epoxy, to help fill in any voids and low spots. And then once that's sanded out, it'll be ready for what they call the epoxy wipe, where you just take raw epoxy, put it in there and use a squeegee and squeegee it in. It's just meant to fill in the tiny little pinholes and such. Back when I was glassing the airplane, I did a video just on the epoxy wipe method. So if you want to get reacquainted with that, you'd have to go back through one of the old videos. So this one's pretty much ready. I've just kind of roughly sanded inside. It doesn't really matter. I'm going to get some more epoxy primer and I'll prime the inside of this. And then the only last thing to do is fill in that little void there with this. This is cotton flocks and epoxy, ground up cotton with epoxy. It's extremely hard when it's finished. There's a little bit of microballoons slurry over, so, but this will be sanded out. But I got to fill this in. These are good and those are good. But on the bottom cowl, that's all finished as well, other than waiting for its first sand out. And then the bottom of those little tabs on this, as you can see, they're going to need some of that cotton flocks to fill in. There's a void there, it needs filled in, but those pieces there, you can see it's just a thin piece there, so that'll get filled in and beveled just like the top, and then these will get beveled. So that's basically where I'm at with this thing. This past week I didn't get out here until actually yesterday, Sunday. Today's Tuesday. Saturday I had work to do in the house. I got my husky. If you ever heard of zoomies, cats, dogs, they all get the zoomies every now and then. And the huskies are well known for zoomies. They'll fly around in the house. He runs downstairs and he literally body slams into the couch. Usually he'll take all 4 feet, hit the back of the couch, slam it against the wall, and then springboard off of it and back upstairs. Well, doing that, he ended up busting the couch. So Saturday, I ended up having to work on that. And the weather was nice. It was sunny, but we haven't been pretty much over 40 degrees all week. Today, it didn't even touch 40, but sunny, beautiful out. And it's been windy as hell. But last week, I ended up driving. I ended up working all 5 days. I did 4 hours, 5 hours each day for the week. Just to kind of get back into it. I still have the vertigo. It's not bad if if I'm driving, I hit bumps. It kind of makes your head wobble, but it recovers 2 seconds or so, and it's fine. But I'm able to drive pretty good with it. But I've been taking it easy, and it still takes its toll on you. 4 hours of driving and rocking and rolling and swinging your head left and right, checking for traffic at stop signs. But I still have the vertigo. I'm probably in the 70 to 75% through it, but I still have it. It's most noticeable whenever I move my head, twitch the head left or right, then you can tell it's still there. But for the most part, I walk slowly, easy. I'm fine walking the up and down. But anyway, so I sanded out at Cowling, and then I decided to start working on this tail wheel, try to get this thing finished, fabbed up to make it steerable. And so I went up in there and I hooked up the leaf spring and the wheel, and I had to get in there with some little jumper cables and the battery from the airplane and unplug the motor so I could power the motor up. And you just touch it because that thing moves so fast without the speed controller. So I had to move the linkage so I could hook this all up. And what I found was clearance problems, but I'll get to that in a second. But in order to get this to work, you see right here, I put this in my CNC. I clamped this up in a vise, put it on its side, and then I just freehand cut this groove out on both sides so this would fit. My original thought was to cut these off and offset them so they'd grab out here, because I didn't really want to cut into this. Plus the old one, the clamp was, this bolt was clear back here on the old one. So that changes some of the geometry of where this thing's up in there. It just changes where the up and down limit switches will be for this. It'll have a little shorter stroke being up here, and I'll have to move the micro switches to get it so it shuts off when it's up and down. But the problem I ran into, this was a little cross brace that was welded in this bar here to here. And it was a solid bar originally, and then I needed to take this apart, but you can't get any of this out because this was all welded together. You could take these bolts out, but you couldn't get it apart. So I cut that, and I just made this so I could put a bolt in there to take it apart. Like so it would separate. And what that would allow me to do is, once you pull this bolt out, you could swing these out of the way and then unbolt these and pull them out. So that's what I did. Okay, so I cut that out because this was going up in farther, and that was going to hit the elevator push-pull tube for the elevator. So I had to remove that, and it's like, I don't really need it. This holds it all together here, this holds it together, this is all solid up through here, it can't move, can't twist. This is bolted into a pivot point where it hinges right up here. There's a hinge point right here where this thing pivots, so this can come up and down. So I figured it's not needed. And then I also, first thing happened was these arms, which were welded underneath here on this side, all they were for was to attach a spring to here. And then there was the smaller one, which was attached down here on this lug. I just cut them off. They all faced inward actually. And it grabbed this spring here. But when this thing is down, that spring is stretched out about twice the length. And that spring is there to help pull the gear up when you're doing the original hand crank design. There was a couple cables that came back through from a gear set up underneath the floor of the airplane. And then it hooked to a chain, number 25 chain, and that rotated this. This rotates off these brackets. These brackets bolt right up to the vertical fin. So this actually, when it's in the airplane, is like this. So it rotates up here, and it lifts this gear up this way. You know, pulls her up that way. So biggest problem was this was going up now. The one on this side actually was going up and hitting the bottom of the motor that drives this chain. So this thing would swing all the way up around back here, and it was hitting the motor. So I figured these aren't really needed, so I cut them out. Cut those two out and the two little ones out for each side. So now I don't have the springs in there. That motor on that tail is a car window electric motor for a Ford Mustang actually. You know, same thing goes in this car. And they've got a lot of power, So I don't feel that I need the springs anymore. So I cut them off, ground it down, repainted all this. This is all just freshly painted. Cut this one off back here. Give you a little idea. Those little lugs there. Those are still there because those hook up to these. These bolt into that little lug, and that's what pulls the gear. The door is closed when the gear goes up. So these will all have to be readjusted after it's all back in, and that bolts up in. So that's kind of where I'm at today. I just finished this all, and then I made this bracket here, as you can see. Remember, I want to make this steerable. I only want to steer it at most 5 to 10 degrees. So, and now what's going to happen now is I found some motorcycle cable kits, fresh up the clutch cables, brake cables. They use a 3/32 wire and a bigger outside housing, and then there's the standard throttle cable, which is no bigger than cables on a bicycle brake. So, but the two heavy cables are going to go in here. The adjuster that you use that has the long threaded tube on it and nut on each side, I'll use that to adjust this to neutral. But they're going to come through here, and I just got it pre-drilled for 1/4 inch. It's going to be bigger than that. This is a piece of like 1/16 inch steel, all welded up. And I drilled some holes in it to make it a little lighter. But that's basically what that is. And that's set at a 90-degree angle. I guess we'll turn it on our side. So the cable is going to come down here, and I'll put some, make some special pins that'll clip into here, and you can cinch the cable down. Or the cables have a lead end on them anyway. So, and it comes with some accessories for it. But I put it down here on the bottom because when this wheel goes up into the airplane, it's going to hit the fuselage here. And if this was bent around this way on the top side, it might get in the way of the fuselage underneath. So it's better to put it on the bottom. And there's plenty of room for the tail wheel I got here for that to work. So So that's kind of what I was up to today, was getting this all finished up. And let me tell you, this thing is a royal treat to get in and out. These 4 bolts go all the way through the spars in the top, and they're that long. So there's a long, and then you got to get your hands up in there and a socket up there to get onto these, and a wrench on this end because you can't come straight in. It take a half hour to get that thing out of there, and probably take even longer to put it in. So that's kind of where I'm at. I'll get these cables coming, and then these cables are just going to come run right up along the spring. Again, this is clear back here out of the way. So those cables are going to come up basically up through here, and this thing is probably 7 to 8 inches wide up here where this pivots. And I got to go up over top of that, and right there's a bulkhead inside and it's wood, part of the box fuselage. I'll be able to mount some other type of metal brackets up in there similar to this, so when a cable comes up in, it'll pin into there, and then the raw cable will go on up to the rudder pedals like I mentioned before. And then I'll have some springs in that cable somewhere that are just tight enough that when it's on the ground and you run your rudder pedals, it'll steer this until it hits the stop, and it won't go any farther. Then the cable will be able to stretch this spring, and then that stretching of the spring will help give me some resistance feel on these rudder, because there's no resistance. I mean, when you're in an airplane pushing the pedals, that's just how easy that thing moves. So it's very sensitive. So the whole idea is to tone down the sensitivity. If you make this thing turn 30 degrees, you're not going to be able to steer it. No way. I just want to have a little bit of steering there, that if anything happens like the last time where the tail wheel was locked and it touched down, it came loose, and it caused the plane to veer. And then once it turns like that, you're not getting it back because it's free, it's swivel. And riding the left brake wasn't enough to pull this thing back into neutral. So at least this time I'd have a fighting chance of just a little bit of steering to kind of sway it back to the center of the runway. So that's kind of what that's at. So I'm going to order the steel for the motor mount. I haven't done anything else with the front of the airplane motor net, so that's still all the way it was from the last video. So I'm going to order up the tubing. I'm going to get 8 feet of 5/8 tubing like this, 2 feet of some 1/2 inch to make up these new bushings for here, and then there'll be some horizontal bushings, and then those black mounts you've seen before. So I got to make up 4 tubes for that with like 1 7/8 washers welded to it, and that's what holds these rubber bushings up here that go into this motor mount, and then there'll be the 2 on the bottom. And then I'll make up a jig, piece of plywood to locate these 4 points, locate these 4 points, 2 sheets, and they'll all be nailed, bolted together or something to where I'll be able to just put the tube in here, on the jig, and I'll be able to cut and jig it all up, tack it up, and then once this is pulled off, put it in there, make any adjustments to make sure it fits clear and to make sure everything's on center line. So like right now, this motor is tilted up like 2 degrees, which was, when I made this, apparently it didn't measure as good as I thought I did when I made it, so it's off a little. So I'm going to get her straightened out. And then the next thing is, again, would be playing around with the radiators and such. So I still need to order the tubing for this, but I think right now I'm going to get the metal tubing first. Surprisingly, it's not all that bad. Wix Aircraft actually has better prices on their 4130 than Aircraft Spruce. It's like half. Aircraft wants almost $6 a foot for this stuff. It's 5/8 035, and you can get it for $3.50 or something like that on Wix. So it's like half price. It's all 4130 chromoly, so it doesn't matter. So I'll get that ordered up tonight. I need 2 new bolts for that tail wheel assembly. A 1/4 inch bolt that originally went through here. It's about 1 size too long. It would require 2 washers. I also have a thin washer on each side of this, so, and a thick one here, and it's still not drawn down. It could still need another washer. So I'm going to order a 1 size shorter here, and then this bolt is just a grade 8 automotive bolt I threw in there just to hold it together, so I could order the correct length bolt for that. So now the next thing, I'll just let this set up and finish curing. It's dry to the touch, but if you squeeze on it, it still can be sensitive. solvent, you get any lacquer on that, it will cut it. But that's epoxy. Once it's cured, the lacquer won't touch it. But in this cooler weather, it will not. It'll take days for that to be completely cured, but it'll probably be good enough. I don't know that I'll be doing it tomorrow. I'll be going back out driving tomorrow. So I may not get to anything again till next weekend. So, but that's gonna, I guess, do it for this update. Still gonna have to either reshim this a little more because it's still too long with that original center bolt there. Tube, it's a threaded tube, so somebody's walking a dog because Loki's having a fit. All right, everyone, I'm just going to keep this one short for you. Let you know I'm still plugging away on it. Eventually, someday, I'll start working on the canopy. Right now, I've got enough stuff I can tinker with until I get some money and get a couple bills caught up. And then I'll have some free money. But I've got enough money right now to order the tubing. It's not going to be like $50 or so, $50, $60 to get the tubing with shipping and all that. But I can still work on the canopy, get it figured up and drilled, and may have to weld the holes shut on the original frame because my canopy was a little flatter. This one's more angled, so these holes are going straight in, and I need them to come in at a slight angle, you know, based off of this. So I may end up drilling them between these holes, and then I'll just weld these ones shut. The same way the sides may work. They may be okay. The front is probably going to have the same problem. They're going to need to be welded at an angle. So I'll weld them shut. Piece of cake on that. But again, it's stripping the finish off of that to repaint it. So I've got very limited zinc chromate green left in this epoxy. So, all right, that's going to do it. I'm going to go ahead and cut this short. I don't want to drag it on too much longer. That's basically all I got to report is that and to work on that. This weekend, I don't know what the weather's going to be like. It's still supposed to be not 40 tomorrow, but I got to get the epoxy mixed up and on there, and once that's sanded out. But I can't do anything past that until I buy some more epoxy primer paint from this Class Coat company to paint it, because it's a beautiful, easy sanding primer, and it's absolutely great, and it's unaffected by solvents. And then I've got the blues. I just need to get some white, so I need to order some underside white and some primer, maybe a quart of primer, and I only need about a pint of the underside white because it's a 1-to-1 mix ratio, so it takes 1 pint will give you a quart if you mix the whole thing with the hardener. So, all right, that's going to do it for this week, folks. Sorry I don't have any more, but it's pretty tedious designing this stuff, figuring it all out. But as always, appreciate everyone taking the time to watch these videos. Feel free to leave any comments, questions, concerns. And the last videos I see have kind of run their course. There are a few questions on there about things that I still need to go in and answer. But somebody asked about doing a GoFundMe, and it's like, no, I'm back to work now. I don't need to do the GoFundMe. It's just going to take me a little time to catch up and keep going. But I don't need any help. Appreciate the thoughts, though. But I'll get there. I'm in no hurry. So, all right, everyone, that's going to do it. I will cut this video, get it loaded up tonight, and hopefully I'll see you guys again next weekend for the next update. So, again, thanks for watching, everybody, and I will see you later. So, for now, this is Dan O'Donnell out.